Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Rick dropping in on you. Hope everybody's having an unbelievable start to your year, start to your week, start to your day. You guys, I'm going to ask that you be patient with me. I'm still trying to recover. My voice had a sinus infection. Um, Still trying to recover my voice. So hopefully it holds up as we do Transformational Tuesday. Man, I love these theme days because it gives me something specific to focus on in areas that I know people have issues and concerns and desires and aspirations. Transformational Tuesday, I try not to be ambiguous. I try to focus on something specific. I try to focus on something that can give you substance, something you can consume, and it has an impact on your life. I'm not real big on charging up someone emotionally, but not giving them a sense of direction, a sense of purpose, a sense of capacity to do something with that feeling that they have. I don't have the problem with you feeling good because you seen a speech or heard a saying or read something charging. But if you don't have a way to tap it, to say, okay, that's where I need to be, this is how I get there, then you are just out there chasing a feeling. And we get people that do that a lot. They're chasing the motivation, but they're not being moved in a direction that allows them to achieve the things they desire. I want to give you something that you can literally work with. This is Transformational Tuesday. Before I get started, look in the description box. There is a very limited offer for people who are really looking to elevate themselves and do something different and change their lives. I'm offering my Bonze package, which is a 12-week, 12-session package at 50% off over the next 24 hours, or when the first 10 people sign up. After 10 people sign up and register, I will shut the portal down and the offer would be done. But it's going to be over tomorrow, one way or another, and it goes back to its regular price. The offer is in there. Today, I'm actually going to go off into my 20th book, Critical Mass. I don't know if the light is glaring in it too much, but Critical Mass, the phenomenon of next level living. This book is special to me, and maybe because it was book number 20 or whatever, but this book is juiced. I love it. And just in case you want to get a copy of it, the link is in the description box and you can order a signed copy of it. But let me tell you something. There's a lot to reading in the research that I've done over 20 years and understanding the habits of successful people. One of the, outside of waking up early and having a specific plan for the day, another thing is reading. The average person in America reads approximately one book a year. The top 5% of performers in this country read 4 books a month. And it has a major impact. I'm going to read 2 different entries from this book, and I'm going to elaborate on both, and I'm going to show you how it works into your transformation. The first one is coming from chapter 9, when absolutely everything goes wrong. And this one is under a subtopic, the principles of power and performance. And it's just a short paragraph, but I want to read it to you. It says, when people come to me for help, they have either experienced success at a high level and they are looking to take their game to a higher level, or they are struggling to break free of a life of stagnancy and perpetual failure. I have come to realize that those who are in between success and failure are at the greatest risk of never achieving their full potential. Those who are in between success and failure, while they are not happy with where they are not uncomfortable enough to take action necessary to change it. They are still willing to wait for fate to deliver what they have the capacity to create. Uh, here's the thing. One of the most dangerous things to progress is comfort. One of the most paralyzing forces in achieving something of monumental value in your life is being in a place where you're not uncomfortable enough to come out. See, comfort will cause you to relax. It'll cause you to say it's not that bad. It'll cause you to reason and rationalize mediocrity. It will cause you to sit up and say, man, I could be over there and this could be happening. Whatever, man. At least I have, at least I've done, at least I've got. And what you're doing is you are rationalizing not living up to the potential that the creator placed inside of you by way of gifting, by way of purpose, by way of internal divine planning. And when you do that, you fail the creator, you fail every person you will put on this planet to impact. You fail your own destiny, and you're the only one that can do it, because the very definition of destiny is that the more you try to stop it, the more you ensure it happens. The only person that can stop your destiny is you. When you sit up and you say, well, man, I would love to make XYZ. I could be making, but I'm doing better than most. Your goal isn't to come here and do better than most. The goal is to come here and fulfill your design. The goal is to come here and fulfill your destiny. The goal is to come here and live out the fullness of who you are. The goal is that when you leave this place, you have tapped into all of your potential. You have left everything that is left for that has been set out for you to do. You've done it. You hear me say this at the end of almost every video when I'm talking about life change, that I live my life on full, so that when I die on E. And what that means is I'm not taking any of my potential to the grave. Hello, Pieces of Me Incorporated. I'm not taking any of my potential to the grave. I'm not taking anything that God placed inside of me, the Most High placed inside of me, as gifting, as skill, as purpose, as vision. I'm not taking any of it to the grave unused. I'm not taking, Dr. Miles Monroe once said that the wealthiest place on the planet is the cemetery. I've heard Les Brown repeat it, but it was first said by Dr. Miles Monroe back in the 1990s. And he said that you'll find books unwritten in the cemetery. You'll find businesses not started in the cemetery. You'll find conglomerates not connected in the cemetery. You'll find inventions not created in the cemetery. People had visions. People were given purpose. And they took the potential to the grave because they didn't stand up and move outside of the comfort zone. When people come to me and I see that they've already stepped out in their faith, and so they've already achieved some things and they have drive, they're going to be okay. When people come to me and they're so frustrated with their life that they can barely sit still, they're going to be okay, because the discomfort is going to drive them to move. It's the ones that come and they fit the idea of what's successful in this world. High five, low six-figure income. Man, very few people doing that. You've got to understand that's a dangerous place to be, because your job here, if I'm breathing, I'm growing. I'm looking for ways to be better. I'm looking for ways to be more impactful. I'm looking for ways to play out my destiny. I'm not sitting still thinking, man, I've written 25 books. Man, I've started 47 companies. Man, I've been around the world. Man, I have clients on multiple continents. I've got to be doing pretty good. I'm done. No. I haven't scratched the surface of what God put me here for. There are people who need to know that where they were born wasn't their destiny, it was their origin. They need to know that no matter where they come from, that there's some place that they can be that's greater. You are going to have to understand that nobody's going to sit up and drop your dream in your lap. You're going to have to execute massive action, and massive action doesn't come when you're comfortable. Adversity is an unbelievable thing. People dodge it with everything they've got. But adversity is the fertile soil in which the seeds of faith are planted and cultivated. You can't really grow things. You can't really execute, build, and grow faith if there's no adversity, if there's no challenge, if there's no difficulty. I once saw an interview where Will Smith was being interviewed about all the success that he obtained after his rap career failed as the Fresh Prince way back in the early 90s. And he said that he has come to believe that God placed everything worth having on the other side of fear. And I agree with him 100%, but I would also, on the other side of fear, on the other side of pain, on the other side of uncertainty. Anytime that you look at anything worth having, there are some things in front of you that make you want to question your resolve of getting involved. That's okay. That's testing whether or not you're ready to be there. Maybe you haven't gone through enough yet. Maybe you haven't seen enough yet. Maybe you're not tired enough yet. But whatever it is, you're going to have to become motivated enough to move, because nothing changes without massive action. It starts in the mind. You got to have the right mindset. You got to have the right thinking, but the mind alone won't change it. It's cultivated and facilitated in the speech. You got to watch your self-talk, but your self-talk alone won't get you where you're trying to go. You got to have, but you got to be able to talk it, right? Because the Bible says what? You shall declare a thing and it shall be established on you, that life and death is in the power of the tongue. So I've got to be careful about it. I've got to have the right thinking and the right speech. But if I'm not moving towards the thing that I say I desire, I can't have it. It's not going to. But here's what happens. The moment I start to move toward, God has conditioned the universe to respond to my faith. The moment that I move toward it, the universe begins to conspire on my behalf. And that's the thing that I get excited when I see challenge, because on the other side of the challenge is the thing I'm chasing. But we are going to have to get into a mindset that it's not going to be easy, that life isn't going to roll over and fold for us, that everything that we say we won't just won't fall out. We're going to have to be saying, I'm going for it. I'm going to go until it happens. I'm going to press until it falls in front of me. I'm not going to give up. That's something. And here's the second passage. And again, for those who are just dropping in, I'm reading from my 20th book, Critical Mass, The Phenomenon of Next Level Living. The link is in the box if you want to grab a copy of it. But here is the second part that you need to, and it's from the subtopic, investing in your strength. And this is about how you build the willpower. Now, willpower in itself isn't enough. You need to have the right conditioning, the right programming, so that the subconscious mind, or what the Bible calls the heart, the center of the soul, is able to produce what's needed to be produced, because the subconscious creates 96% of your behavior, performance, your outcomes. But that 4%, that's willpower. And the willpower is what creates the habits and the trains of thought that manage the subconscious. So you've got to start there. But here says investing in your strength a bit. It says increasing willpower takes on a similar process for developing and strengthening the body. In order to achieve optimal results, the training must be intense. It must be consistent. You will only get out of the process what you put into it. This is another area where a number of people fail. They take a lackadaisical or apathetic approach to the process of building their willpower. Subsequently, they train themselves to embrace mediocrity through practice. It is not what you say you want that matters. It is what you are willing to do in order to achieve what you want that will determine the final outcome. Let me read that last part. Subsequently, because they take a lackadaisical approach, subsequently, they train themselves to embrace mediocrity through practice. Let me explain something. We live in a society that applauds average, but doesn't reward it. Be very careful that you're not operating in the applause of people and not experiencing the reward of your energy, your effort, and your focus. I'll show you a prime example. The entire school system celebrates mediocrity, but the world and life doesn't reward it. In school, you can literally pass and be considered successful with a C and a D. But when you get into the world, the C and the D's aren't the ones that's getting on in life. It's the ones that are sitting down that were willing to do the extra studying to get the A's and B's that are getting on right now. And you can't understand why. Average sounds good until it's time to reap reward. And it's those who refuse to be average that are getting the praise, that are getting the glory, that are getting the rewards, that are standing on top of the mountain, peering down, saying, I did it. It's not the mediocrity. It's not the mediocre. It's the ones that sit up and says, I'm going to stay up later and study. It's the ones that sit up and say, I'm going to work on my vision after I get home from work. It's the ones that sit up and say, I'm going to take a couple of extra days and put into this so that it's done correctly. It's the ones that have pride in producing their best work that are going to get on. The C's don't make it in the world. They get on, they get paid, but they don't get paid the way that the A's get paid. They don't get the reward and the wins. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't C students that came out, but what I can tell you is if a C student came out and won, they didn't win by being C-minded. They came out and found something they were passionate about, and they decided to become A-minded in that area, and they started to win. So I'm not saying if all you've ever made in school is C's, you'll never win. What I'm saying is you're going to have to change the mindset that created the C lifestyle and move into an A mindset where you're giving 120% versus 75%, because 75% will get you through school, but it'll never put you on top of the mountain. Then the last part of it says that after it says that you are literally training yourself to embrace mediocrity through practice, it says it is not what you say you want that matters. It is what you are willing to do in order to achieve what you want that will determine the final outcome. You don't get what you want. You get who you become. It's not what you get out of your work. It's what you become in your work. When you achieve your goals, you get the goal. But more importantly, in order to have obtained the goal, you had to become something you weren't. You don't get what you want, you get who you are. If I decide that I wanted to be XYZ, what I had to do is look at what the person who has XYZ does. How do they move? How do they think? What do they practice? What time do they get up? How many books they read? What type of books they read? Who do they have in their circle? What type of conversations are they having in their circle? What do they spend the vast majority of their time thinking about? All of those things matter, because in order to have that thing, I have to have the capacity to create that thing, and that's becoming. Wishing doesn't get it. Praying doesn't get it. Praying isn't about producing something. Praying is about revelation. Whether it's prayer and meditation, whether it's pure prayer, whatever it is, it's about getting a connection to God to get clarity on the vision. It's about getting revelation and understanding. You are going to have to execute in this world. God is never going to do what he sent you to do. Here's another thing for those of you who are looking to skate around or circumvent the struggle, circumvent the process, circumvent the challenges of life. Let me tell you something. You're praying every day and you're wondering why it's not coming out the way you wanted to, because you're praying for God to deliver you from the giants he sent you to slay. That doesn't work that way. You're never going to be released from the responsibility of your design. You're never going to be released from the responsibility of your purpose. If you were given a purpose to move in a certain way, you don't get to decide, this is a little too tough for me, so I want to check out of this and I want to move over here and I want to try what he's trying. That's not your purpose. That's not your design. That's not what you're here for. You don't get to check out of that. So God's answer for you praying to be delivered from the giant he sent you to slay is never going to be yes. It's always going to be no. You're going to always be held into that. You don't get to check out because it gets tough. You don't get to check out because your feelings got hurt. You don't get to check out because people ain't backing you. You don't get to check out because a relationship went one way. You don't get. What you got to do is fold over and look, what can I be better at tomorrow? I never look up. I'm not pointing the fingers at nobody about no thing. I'm not looking at the business situations that didn't go the way I thought. I'm not looking at how my kids may be acting. What I'm asking myself is, how can I be better tomorrow? Because if I'm better tomorrow, the people in my periphery will be better by association. I have a responsibility to my designer not to fold. I have a responsibility to my designer to hold the course. I have a responsibility to you're not supposed to sit up and say, well, at least I'm not as badass. That's a checkout. That's a cop-out. I'm not in competition with anybody but myself. I look at myself and say, is this the best version that you can produce today, Rick? Is there something that you could be doing better? Is there a piece of you you're holding back that's hurting your purpose? Or is there something you could do better that will expand you? When you start looking inside of yourself for the answers to all the enigmatic issues you think you're facing, you're going to find that the problems are actually illusions. And when you determine that I'm walking in the purpose that I was designed of, and you have a divine connection with God, the answers are simply a step away. I've got to move on it. But what you'll find also is you got a lot less time to blame somebody else for what's going on in your life. People are going to do what people do. And people are just like you. They've been through things. And if you expect a perfect person to show up in your world and be whatever, you're going to be disappointed because you're not perfect. And if you focus on the fact that you're not perfect, you stop judging the imperfections of other people. You start looking at how can I be better? Because that's how you change the world. You don't change the world by pointing out what's wrong with someone else. You change the world by working on what's wrong with you. You change the world by saying, I know I can be better. Not to prove anything to anybody, not to compete with anybody, but to tell the Creator, I feel what you meant when you made me. Let me say that again. I wake up every day feeling the purpose of God in designing me. And when you do that, there's an urgency in how you move, because I don't want to have to explain why I didn't fulfill. I don't want to have to be accountable for balking on what I was given. Now, I'm going to have to say I made some mistakes. I'm going to have to say I could have done some things better. But what I won't have to say is I quit. What I won't have to say is I turned around. What I won't have to say is I surrendered. What I won't have to say is I gave up. I'm either going to get it or I'm going to die trying. Either one works for me. When you make up in your mind that you're going to be the best version of yourself, guess what happens? God unleashes providence. A bunch of you can't get past a point because you're waiting on the answer. And God says, I'm waiting on your faith. I'm waiting on you to step out and show me you trust the design. You trust the purpose. You trust the designer. When you step out into that moment of darkness where you can't tell what's going to happen, but you believe strongly enough that your best self is on the other side of that pain, the other side of that fear, the other side of that uncertainty, when you step out there, the doors of providence open. People start calling you and telling you what you need. People start connecting with you and putting you in the right positions, in the right places. I'm telling you, every time that I decided to move on something, people that I had been seeing for days and months and even years, all of a sudden now show why they were in my life. I didn't understand. But God said, I'm not moving until you move. I don't care what you call it. I'm not here to tell you how to interact with God. When I'm telling you, you can call it the universe, you can call it God, you can call it the Most High, you can call it Jesus. It doesn't matter what but you better have a connection to a divine source that can make sense of a bunch of the things that you're going to face that's too big for you, but not bigger than your purpose. See, a lot of us are so self-centered, we got caught up in our egos. And we got a world full of ego-driven people. The problem with the ego focuses on self. The problem with that is when you meet something bigger than you, the ego starts to crumble because the ego needs to be the biggest thing in the room. And when you meet something and you will that's bigger than you, the ego can't deal with it. And you start to fold and you start to shrivel up and you start to shrink. You start pursuing colorless goals and dwarf dreams and visions. And you start sitting up playing it safe because what's out there that I thought I wanted is bigger than me. The problem is bigger. The venture is bigger. No, I'm not focused on who I am. I'm focused on my purpose. There's nothing bigger than the purpose. God's not going to allow me to encounter anything bigger than my purpose. Because the purpose is connected to the designer. And nothing's bigger than the designer. You better learn to get out of your comfort zone. You better learn to engage those moments of fear, uncertainty, pain, difficulty. Oh, let me tell you about delay. Delay does not mean denial. Stop interpreting something not happening in your timeline as not being God's will. I'm almost certain in my years of experience, in my study, and in all that I've invested in trying to understand this thing, I'm almost certain and sure that no good thing will be withheld from you. Now, it doesn't say all good things are going to be thrown or thrust upon you either. It says no good thing will be withheld. What does it mean? If it's good for you and it's meant for good, it's not being withheld. That means it's not God's will. So if you don't have it, it's because you're not seizing it. Now, we can go back, and I'm going to be done. We can go back and we can look at the Hebrews. We can look at the Israelites. We can look at them. We can learn a lot from them. They were the people of promise, the children of promise, right? There's Canaan on the other side of this little river, and it's the promised land. It's the land that God had promised the forefather Abraham. But what did God say? You got to go in and what? Possess it. He says, it's people in there. They own your land. You hold the title, but they're on your land. You're going to have to go possess it. You're going to have to put in some work, some blood, some sweat, some tears. There's some other things when I'm studying that fell upon me. And those who want to hang around and get it, I'm going to be maybe 3 to 5 minutes tops. But I'm studying this, right? And I'm looking at it, and I'm getting some understanding, because I want to be a person that's operating in faith. I don't have a desire to be religious. I have a desire to be connected to God in the most intimate way. So I'm looking at how God moves and what God expects and what God sees and how God operates, because that doesn't change. That's why God is holy. His integrity is unchecked. So here it is. So I'm looking, and there's a part where they send the spies over, right? The spies come back. 10 out of the 12 say we can't do it. Joshua and Caleb says we can. Well, the multitude says we're going to believe the 10. God says, come here, Moses, let me holler at you. Moses goes over, and Moses been going back and forth with God, trying to hold him off of him. And God said, come here, let me holler at you, Moses. God says, I've heard their complaints against me. And I'm like, I ain't heard no complaints against God. I heard them say that they don't believe that they can take it. I heard them say that they believe the report of the 10. When did they complain against us? So I go back and I go over there and I look. And what I find is when you sit up and you don't move on what God said move on, you're telling God you don't trust him. That's a complaint. When you sit up and God has already said you can and you say you can't, you just call God a lie. That's a complaint. God took it personal. Now, they were ready to stone Moses, but they weren't trying to talk noise to God. They just seen, but they didn't realize that when you fail to move in what God gave you to move in, you have complained against God. But here's the big thing. He says, so this is what I want you to do. Go tell him, as you have spoken in my hearing, so shall I do to you. God meets you at the level of your expectations. God is never going to perform for you beyond what you believe you can do. You're going to have to execute faith in your life to achieve things beyond what you have done. That's just simply how it's done. But this is what happens when you decide, I'm going to step out on faith. The universe says, there he is. Then the universe begins to conspire. Things start to fall in place. I'm not telling you it's magic. I'm not telling you it's easy. I'm saying pay attention to how your faith moves things. Walls and barriers begin to fall. Doors begin to open. And the enemy, the greatest hater you got, the biggest detractor you got, can't stop it. This is what I want you to understand. The change is up to you. The question is, are you prepared to move on it? I hope that you were blessed with this. As I stated in the first place, you can get a copy of this by clicking the link in the box. Also, over the next 24 hours, or when the first 10 people sign up, you can now get my 12-week bronze package at half off. No, it's not free, but I'm good at what I do. I'm worth it and more. For those that are ready to do something unbelievable, 12 weeks with me will get you there. On that note, I'm out of here. I hope you guys are blessed. I hope that you don't sit on what you received. Take your first step. You'll be surprised what's on the other side of that first step. As I always say, I live my life on full so that when I leave this place, I leave it with no regrets. I die on E. That's what I wake up every day. I want to give everything I have to my purpose. I'm challenging you to do the same thing. On that note, I'm out of here. You guys have an unbelievable